If you recall last week, I invited you to join me on a journey of talking about some songs for the month of September and how they've impacted my faith, and I want to hopefully use them as opportunities to encourage you in your faith as well. This morning I was reflecting on which song I wanted to proceed with sharing with you, and I chose a song that some of you have probably heard is a big part of my testimony, called Carried to the Table by a band named Leeland. And as I was thinking through what different way can I reapproach this beautiful song to share with you again, and as I was reminiscing about the song and thinking through the lyrics, I was drawn to a passage in the Old Testament. And it dawned on me that this song from Leeland is actually kind of a retelling of sorts of this passage. And it's 2 Samuel chapter 9. And David has just become king over Israel. Saul has been killed by the enemies that were pursuing him, or as he killed himself, as the enemies were pursuing him to save himself from the torture and humiliation there. And David is looking at the family of Saul and saying, Jonathan has died, all these folks have died, and yet I want to show kindness. I want to show mercy upon this family. And he calls in the servant Ziba, and he says, who is left? What can I do? And he finds out there's this guy named Mephibosheth. But as it turns out, for one reason or another, he's lame in both feet. The scripture says that there is still a son of Jonathan. He is crippled in his feet. And David says, I want to show mercy on him. I want to show him the kindness and love, even though, I have there's no reason to necessarily. And so David calls this son of Jonathan over to him. He brings him up to the palace, and here's Mephibosheth before the king thinking, oh gosh, what's going to happen? And David says, I want to bless you. You're going to have all the lands of your family, and you're going to be able to farm them for all your days, and you will dine at my table with me. Imagine Mephibosheth's shock when he finds out, this is what you called me here for? I am from Saul's family, the guy who literally tried to kill you in the palace and pursued you all over the place, trying to take your life. You want to show me mercy? This is just unbelievable to him. And yet this is what David chose to do. As I was reflecting on that story then, it put the song Carried to the Table in a whole new perspective. And we can think of the songs, if you want to take some time to listen to the song, you'll hear these beautiful lyrics that says, I was carried to the table, seated where I don't belong. Mephibosheth didn't belong at the king's table. By all rights, he deserved to live a miserable life because he was part of a family that tried to kill David. And yet he's seated at the table of the king in a place of honor. And we can look throughout all sorts of places in Scripture and find where food, a table, a banquet spread out before people is talked about. Jesus himself reclined at tables with sinners. To sit at the table with Jesus, a rabbi, a great teacher, the Messiah, with sinners, the sinners being at that table, that was uncalled for. That was unacceptable to those around them. And yet that's what Jesus chose to do. He had dinner with them. He placed them at a seat of honor even though they didn't necessarily belong there. The song caught me off guard in my journey because I felt unworthy to come to the God's table. And yet Psalm 23 says, you anoint my head with oil and you prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies. I mean, there's a whole lot to unpack there, but God is saying, even when the world around you, even when things around you are trying to tear you down, I'm going to put you at a table with me, which means you don't have to worry. Sin in our lives often makes us lame. The experiences we have makes us feel lame spiritually. And yet, God is saying, that's okay. You don't have to feel worthy. I made you worthy. There's just something so powerful about that realization. And the song Carried to the Table reminds us that we don't have to try so hard for God's love. He already loves us. And so when we come to the ultimate table, that communion table that we celebrate once a month, where we remember what Christ did to make us worthy, to prepare a place for us at the table, to give us a reason to say we have the right to be there because of what Christ did. When we come to that table, Suddenly there's a whole new understanding of what it means to receive that bread and that cup. To recognize that we were lame in sin, we had been broken from the fall of our sinful nature, and yet God said, I'm still giving you a seat of honor with me at this dinner table. I want to encourage you, take a listen to that song. I'm going to link it down in the description of this video here on YouTube. I just want to encourage you, take a listen to that song. Really listen to the lyrics. Look them up if you have to follow along with them. But realize the power of that song to say, you may be broken, you may be hurting, you may feel unworthy and unjustified to even think about God. And yet it's God himself who says, I've got a seat just for you. I hope you have a great week.